Joy, and now we go to the paper presentations that we will have this afternoon. Our first speaker, our first presenter, is Professor and former Dean of the School of Labor and Industrial Relations, Soler, in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and was one of the UP Centennial Professor awardees for 2009 and 2010. He served as Undersecretary of the Department of Labor and Employment from 1997 to 1998 and is a veteran of labor relations and industrial policy. He was on the board of the Hong Kong-based Asia Monitor Research Center, was a research consultant of the Union Network International, and served as Executive Director of the Fair Trade Alliance, a unique industry, labor, CSO, multi-sectoral coalition and social partnership initiative. He sits on the board of the Journal of Industrial Relations in Sydney and the Asia Pacific Business Review in London. Please welcome Dr. Rene Ofreneo.
Magandang hapon po. Kasi magbabasa ako. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers and especially our conductress, Joy Chavez, and of course the co-sponsors of this event, FPS, Business Board, and I see Ma'am Edna here of CIDS. And now, this paper is a work in progress and is inspired by, number one, let me just mention, because it's a good introduction. In 2003, Dr. Joseph Yap came up with an article in Philippine Star. The title is Time to Take Stock. And I was surprised there was very little discussion or a reaction to that article. But in that article, he was saying that mainstream economics was in the economic study for 31 years. And yet the outcome in the Philippines was not so good in terms of structural transformation. So he was calling for a review. And then in 2012, I think many of you know Norio Zui, a maverick economist from the ADB, came up with a book taking the right path to development. And he was calling for virtually, without saying so, industrial policy by focusing on higher value products. He calls them nearby products, mainly in electronics and auto parts and components. But in private, he was railing against what he called as the dominance of neoliberal economic thinking in the Philippines. And I'm sure you had a lot of discussion with him. And then last year, a professor emeritus came up with a very thick book, 1,000 pages, I think. He was a very good writer and easy to read, but since he was in the policy making for more than 2 decades, 1960s and 70s, I was sort of hoping that in the book there would be some admission of some mistakes in economic policy making, but there was none. I said, how can some people be so arrogant in assuming that they never made mistakes in the 1970s? And then this year, one of the original proponents of industrial policy, of course, died. His name is Dr. Alejandro de Chalco, a friend of Rick Reyes. So let me proceed with this paper. This is a work in progress, and there are other things that can be discussed, and I'm sure our actors have many things to say. Firstly, so in the 1960s, in the early 60s, this is a report of the World Bank, 1962. The World Bank held the Philippines as the second most dynamic industrially in East Asia after Japan. And let me quote, it says, The major structural change since the war has been the growth of domestic manufacturing, which was limited to processing of agricultural products before the war, because we were largely agrarian before the war. By 1960, it had become a significant segment of the economy, accounting for 12.7% of the net domestic product. A vigorous entrepreneurial class has emerged, and the nucleus of a skilled labor force has been formed. And then, at the time, Senate President Hill Puyat, remember Puyat Industries, came up with this conclusion: the Philippines now has factories for the production of a wide variety of manufactured goods. There are also assembly plants for automobiles and trucks, motorcycles. And I'm sure the elite of the Philippines will remember 1960s. South Koreans came to the Philippines to study automotive. Rich Pinoys go to Hong Kong to get their amas. And Pinoy bargain hunters, they go to Singapore for cheap garments. And sympathetic Chinoy, they send contributions to the Comintang Party in Taipei. They have a double passport. Okay, next slide. That was in the 90s. But in the 70s, something happened. And then, of course, some economies, actually there were many debates, contrary to the simplified story about what happened in the 1960s, shifting from what we call as import substitution to export orientation. There were a lot of debates in the 1960s. But the 1970s was dominated by the martial law technocrats. Gustav Ranis of Yale was even mobilized to come up with that red book. John Powers at Ford Foundation and Islamian of ADB, they all collaborated, and according to them, the Philippines was a developing economy with a holistic structure, a small organized sector, mainly import substituting, and a large underdeveloped sector, largely agrarian. Hence, labor market is dualistic, a small protected sector and a large unprotected sector with mass unemployment and poverty persistent. What is the solution? The solution is a shift from ISI, import substitution policy regime, which was erected in the 1950s and 1960s, to a labor-intensive, export-oriented industrialization, or EOI, by opening up to foreign investment, building export processing zone for export, manufacturing, etc., etc. Next. Now, in the 1980s, in 1979, there was a World Bank, very famous World Bank mission to the Philippines, and one of the conclusion was that how come Philippine export sector was not growing fast enough? And so the conclusion was maybe the economy was not open enough. And so there was a deep proposal to deepen the process, and you have this series of structural adjustment loans in support of a series of structural adjustment policy measures. They call them reforms. And so the Philippines became one of the guinea pigs because the SAP was when it was introduced by the World Bank in the 1980s, was a relatively new program. And so I think some Latin American countries joined us in this program. So you have this, but essentially the SAP, and I think by now we know all of them, trading. The content is trade investment liberalization, the regulation of industry, agriculture, finance, services, privatization of government corporations, services, assets. Okay, next. But this SAP was sustained. Of course, later on, this SAP in the 1980s became widespread globally, and they call it Washington Consensus. But in the Philippines, NEDA simply continued with the program, and then we have this yellow medium-term plan in 1986 after EDSA 1. There was a change in the political leadership, but not a change in the economic orientation. The 1990 updates of the medium-term plan, more or less the same. In other words, the story here is there's a consistency, some consistency, continuity of the SAP program. And the privatization program by now is better known as PPP, public-private partnership, because many of the early initiatives on privatization are no more. Okay, next. And yet, despite the deepening of SAP, starting with the 1970, you have this reduction of industrial employment, the share of industrial employment from 1970 to 2010, and I think everybody knows about this. This was highlighted in the book of Norio, and this is also highlighted in many other publications. Share of industry, especially manufacturing, going down. Imagine from 11.9% in 1970 to 8.4% in 2010, and agriculture the same. So the only conclusion is we have a process of de-industrialization, de-agricultural development. Next. Where's the title? Didn't impact. Yes. Now the question is, most of our neighboring Asian countries also pursued export orientation. How come it did not succeed in the Philippines? So, and in 1997, the UBS of Switzerland rated the Philippines as one of the most open in the world. Now, in the 1970s, we were overtaken by the next South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore. 1980s by Malaysia, Thailand. 1990s by China. And now, today, probably Vietnam. So what is the impact of such failure on the labor market? Next. Now, here are some analyses. This is really not new, but this is the subject of many discussions, especially in the Fair Trade Alliance. I tried to invite in this gathering members of the Federation of Philippine Industry, but they were angry at me because I gave the notice only yesterday. Sorry, Joy. But many of the insights on the failures really came from industry. Now, these are some weaknesses we have identified. First, Philippine, you see, I think not all export-oriented industrial model is the same. But the Philippine model simplified economic realities. There is the assumption that automatically the organized sector, the formal sector will expand by just opening up and having all these sub-measures, by just opening up to foreign investment. And then they said, oh, ignore the ISI industries that were developed in the 1950s and 60s. After all, they are all rent-seeking. It's a very, very tough term, rent-seeking. And make markets efficient via the regulation and privatization. And yet the flow of, and up to now, Ben Jongris has been writing about this, the flow of foreign investment to the Philippines compared to other countries, very, very low. Because foreign investment go where they can make money, not only on the basis of market openness. And it's just similar to the assumption, foreign investment will go where labor is cheap. If that is so, then Africa should have the most number of foreign investment. Next. Domestic industry ignored, domestic linkages undeveloped. You see, if you examine the situation in our neighboring countries, they paid special attention on how to develop local champions to become global champions. But here, when they introduced the EOI, especially in the 1970s and even up to the 1980s, they always called the ISI industrialists as rent-seeking instead of helping them, transforming them into become global champions. And then in the terms of fiscal incentives, almost all the burden of taxation fall on the locals. They were punished in a way. The importance of building up industry linkages also neglected. You see, there was a rapid growth of, for example, of the garments industries. And in the 1980s, and courtesy of this quota from North America and Europe, at one time we have almost 1 million workers in the garments industry, 300,000 in the factory, about 700,000 in this subcontracting system. But when the garments industry developed, one industry declined. And what is that? That's the Philippine textile industry. The first time I worked in the Department of Labor in 1975, I was counting the number of textile companies, almost 300. Many of them were developed around the Japanese rehabilitation program because the Japanese gave us second-hand textile mills to the Philippines. But now you can count on the fingers of your hand how many textile companies are there. And why did they decline? There was no linkage. And then moreover, some of the garments companies over-imported. There's a major source of smuggled textile and other paraphernalia for the textile industry. And there was very limited surveillance or police work done on those violation of those injection or export manufacturing. Later on, the garments industry, being a footloose industry, also has declined. I think there are less than 100,000 workers in the garments industry today. Now, local industries, I mentioned, funnies, there's no coordinated liberalization. In fact, many industries, local industries in the Philippines, were not even informed. Or consulted that guys, 1990s, we have some commitments to the World Bank, to the IMF, about this tariff liberalization. You better shape up, prepare. There were none. I was looking for data. It's very strange because I think it's more of a bias because some of the technocrats look at any local industrialists as simply rent-seeking, just like that. And they don't deserve any support. So that's why we were calling for calibrated liberalization. And some people say, oh, that's a very bad term. You just open up, and those who cannot compete, they just die on the wayside. And we were raising the issue of high electricity, unchecked smuggling. And then there's this Swedish publication by Linkeko, McFarlane, and Odno. They said that in this EOI modeling, Philippine EOI, not the EOI of South Korea and or China today, the potentials of intersectoral growth was sacrificed in the name of purely export-oriented development. Okay, next. So these are some of the industries that have collapsed. The Federation of Philippine Industry in the 1990s had a more detailed discussion of this. But even under an export-oriented industrial policy regime, some export industries could also weaken. And I mentioned already garments. We used to have a vibrant toy industry, fashion, accessories, footwear, rubber. Remember Adidas and rubber board? No more. Next. And of course, for industrial. Now, the case of electronics is, you see, we were ahead of China in electronics assembly. In fact, compared to other Asian countries, we started the electronics assembly in the 1970s. 1980s, we were still assembling. 1990s, still assembling. We were not graduating. Because there's no industrialization plan. And today, the electronics industry, in recent years, had gone down. And except that there are some Japanese electronics companies are coming back because they don't like China. But their preference is Vietnam. But look at Samsung. It started as a subcontractor of Sanyo in the 1960s and 70s. But because of industrial policy of the government, so and they got all the support, Samsung now is a global brand. So another is you have this incoherent, inconsistent government policy on foreign investment and technology transfer. Example, car making. Actually, in the I mentioned earlier, I was approached by one Korean auto researcher. I went to the Korean Institute of Labor in the early 90s and he said, Rene, what happened to your auto industry? We used to go to the Philippines to study auto making in the 1970s. He said he could not understand what happened to the industry. But look, in the 1970s, we have this progressive car manufacturing program. The original idea is to have only 3, then it became 5 because of politics. In 1987, it was replaced by the car development program. Then the 3 original players were in, but they added 5 new players, 2 more players in 1992, and then before you know it, more than a dozen. How can a small market sustain the development of a national car program like that? In the meantime, car tariffs went down faster, and for car parts even faster. And those, and I was surprised. All those who registered as car makers in the 1980s and 1990s were all allowed. They were not allowed to ship from importation of completely built up units, CPUs. Today you still have a problem on the car industry in the ASEAN. A lot of the debates in Malaysia and Indonesia precisely because of this national car program. Of course, Thailand has been transformed by Japan into a Detroit of Southeast Asia. Next. And overall, this is a point we would like to make. There's no industrial vision, no policy coherence. The issue is not export orientation per se. It is the wrong export-oriented modeling. And probably, if you go in UNCTAD, there's a lot of discussion on industrialization. And I hope our economists would introduce some of these good economists like Sanjay Lal. But here is Russia's Raja Russia of University of Malaysia, a friend of Joseph Lim. He has this systemic quad model on 4 pillars of industrialization. He said, you need basic infrastructure to promote systemic stability and efficiency. This is not consistently attended in the Philippines. Institutions to provide systemic support for learning and innovation. This is virtually absent in the Philippines. Network cohesion to provide systemic price, technological, and social relationships necessary to drive interactive and interdependent coordination. And I think we're one of the few countries which managed to drive a wedge between local the industries producing for the home market and industries producing for the export market. We are not promoting integration and linkages. The strategic integration in globalized production system. Yes, let's conquer the global market, but let us strategize and let us build up. How come electronics industry is just like that, has been overtaken? It's now being overtaken by Vietnam, and we're not going higher value added as suggested by Norio Zumi. So this would require a careful positioning in global market, and technocrats should opt for sheer reliance on FDI. Should not only for sheer reliance on foreign investment liberalization. Recently, the government announced this CARS. It's a new program based on road mapping on the auto industry. But I have not seen the details of this, but it seems to me that road mapping is simply based on a projection of the expanding market, and I wish that maybe we can have more production of this part because the market is expanding. There was no strategizing. For example, in economics, you have what they call as RCA, revealed comparative advantage. You know, in the auto parts making, we have an very high RCA in wire harness. So I tried to examine this RCA in wire harness. In fact, I think we account for almost 20% of the global market for wire harness. We have the Saki Torres. The biggest auto companies in the Philippines are not Toyota, Mitsubishi, and so on. The biggest are the wire harness makers. Okay. So when I examined this, I realized we have a comparative advantage in this wire harness because it is high-tech but labor-intensive. You see, a wire harness is composed of a bundle of wires, different colors, and then you do it piece by piece. For example, Saki Torres has around 10,000 workers, and they are very well. In other words, if you are doing strategizing, you will concentrate on those items that are higher value added, which requires higher skills. And in fact, they encourage in Saki Torres, they have two unions, a supervisory union and rank and file unions. Their wages are twice the minimum wage. So in other words, you have to strategize your position in the global market. Next, I have to hurry up. But how come the Philippines is growing? Of course we know. Number one is this massive diaspora of overseas Filipino workers, and we have this accident called the call center business process outsourcing. Where's the title? Not title. Philippine, we have this, I will not go into the details, but more than 10 million OFWs and overseas Filipinos. And that's why our economy is always described every year as consumption-led. And you have the tremendous expansion of the services, the new service industries, education, molding, real estate, nostalgia industry, and so on. Next. So, now, the question, is the diaspora a Philippine Dutch disease? Is it the cause of de-industrialization? Because some people said we did not industrialize because we became dependent on migration. You see, if you read the book of Jerry Sikat, I realized that he had a long-running debate with Blas Ople, my former boss in the Department of Labor. But Blas Ople instituted the migration program in the 1970s as a temporary measure. He said, while the EOI program of Jerry Sikat has not taken off, let us send workers to the Middle East and so on. But this temporary program became permanent, and it has become bigger and bigger. And because the industrialization process has not taken off. So, will you say that it is migration is the reason why we have not industrialized? I think it's not the correct logic. Next. And of course, you have the cost center. Next. Okay. I'll not go into the details of this. Next. So, the situation now is we have an economy. Well, the Philippines has several economies coexisting with one another. We have an export-oriented economy. It's like an enclave. We have still the industry set up in the 1950s, 60s, and still continuing. We have an agrarian economy. We're still largely in crisis because the CAP was never implemented fully. And we have a service sectors growing largely because of the contribution of OFWs. But we have also this informal service sector, and then we have this BPO economy. We have a segmented economy. Next. and a very narrow formal labor market and widespread informalization, regular jobs becoming fewer and fewer, more casuals being hired, outsourcing of regular jobs becoming the norm, and of course unionism on the decline. Next. So, main labor complaint or outsourcing, I will not go into the standard discussion in the labor movement, the outsourcing of almost everything. Kulang na lang i-outsource ang Malacanang. Next. And, next. Massive joblessness in the last 3 decades. Next. Of course, with the poverty situation, I will go to the details of this next. Now, at one time, Ayala put this up in Makati. Poor people and other disturbing realities is strictly prohibited, but this was immediately withdrawn. If you are poor, you are not allowed here. And of course, you have this situation. Next. So, some pages of poverty. We interviewed this in 2011, 8 years living in the postcard. But if you go around Quezon City, Metro Manila, at night, almost everywhere, you see people living, everywhere on the streets. Next. So, conclusion, we have let me repeat, export orientation is not the issue. But the issue is we came up with a very narrow model of export-oriented industrial policy compared to the export orientation program in South Korea and in the next and today in China, and it has failed the Philippines massively. So therefore, to catch up with Asia, the Philippines must overhaul existing growth model and clarify industrial vision and how to really forge inclusive growth and sustainable development. Well, this would require really some very serious consultation among us. We cannot go back to the 1960s style of import substitution, but we have to go forward in the light of certain global realities. Thank you.